Oh, hey, Chris Wallace here, advisor to men. I run a few groups online, and one of them is for nice guys. Find me at Nice Guys Unite. I also run the board of directors, which you can find at advisortomen.com. And it's a series of men's groups, men's masterminds that we meet weekly, and we help men live more powerful lives. Chris Wallace, advisor to men. I'm a power and mental fitness coach, and I've been doing this for 30 years. And I've just started recently doing the odd YouTube video, and this is one of them, and it's called Living is Giving. And I hope you'll appreciate the message. And it's in response to a question that comes up often. The question is usually phrased as, am I giving too much? Or am I being a pushover? What's the right balance between giving and receiving so that I make sure I'm not a chump and I'm not a selfish prick either. So in between those two extremes is where your power lies. What we strive to create always is mutually cooperative relationships. This is what men do, at least with the adults around us anyway. Some adults have more or less equal potential or ability. So that discounts children, the infirm, sick, elderly, on and so forth. And lest we start to keeping a quid pro quo service ledger in short order, often we are required to love people even when they can't love us back. Men do that. So understand first that men and women have banded together since the dawn of time to take advantage of each other's strengths and shore up each other's weaknesses. We seem to find a way to fit that way, don't we? Cooperation's at the heart of our success as a species. Men and women are more alike than different, but those differences are significant. We'll talk about those another time. Generally, we strive for trust as the marker for safety required to maintain our relationships. To that end, orgasm is a trust mechanism, not a procreative one. Being naked in front of your partner is not just appearing absent a sword and a shield. It says, I risked myself for you. So here's the bottom line. All of us need reassurance from each other. We need to know that when shit hits the fan, that there are others nearby who can provide us with haven, safe haven to return to. Our main partner is key to our emotional and mental health. If you have a significant other, you'll understand this. People in long-term relationships live longer, they're happier, they're more confident. It's not facing the world alone. Heck, our heartbeats will even sync at the same rate when we're together. Most of our difficulties with each other are emotional, yet we typically address these using the intellect. Things get tense and we start judging each other. Using our left brain, mostly in right-handed people, we start telling our partners how it should be, how it ought to be, how it must be, when what we were really looking for was reassurance. We just wouldn't admit that. What is it that will make us feel safe? It's to know that the other person is still with us, is on our side, has our back. It's, are you there? Are you with me? Next time you squabble, ask and answer these two questions by having the emotional intelligence to know that what lies at the heart of all of your relationships is feeling. When we exist emotionally and we interpret afterwards. So it's about emotion. We don't exist intellectually. We feel first, and then we interpret after the fact. So we often speak of men's vulnerability, and just as often I caution them that it's not what they think. It's having the wisdom to ask for reassurance when she acts in a way that puts her loyalty to you in question, without falling apart, man. It's powerfully asking her to be there for you and to have your back. And using this approach pays off. It allows her to reassure and reestablish connection with you, which is what you want. Let me give you a silly example from my own life that I encountered recently. My own home. I have my mother's good china in a sideboard, and I'm saving them for my daughter. My daughter's 9 now. These are the good china commonly held as prized possessions in families of mom's generation. I managed to salvage them courtesy of my sisters, 4 sisters. So little Charlie, my daughter, would have something special from her grandmother. She's 9 now, but she was 4 or 5 when Grandma passed, and she was really hurt when her favorite old person in the world died. And this was my way of doing something tangible for a little girl's grief. It was important to me. And Mrs. decided she wanted the space in that sideboard, and since we never used the dishes, unbeknownst to me, she boxed up the set of these 60 or 70-year-old fine china dishes. And she suddenly came to me and suggested we could put them in the basement, showing me the box sitting there on the floor. Our basement is a mold factory, living as we do in an old farmhouse that's about a generation past its due date. So I was kind of caught off guard, but I said I'd think about it. A little while later, I composed myself and I told her I was a little hurt that she boxed them up without considering me. I wasn't opposed to storing them differently, but as long as it's adequate, but how about talking to me about it first? I explained very, very briefly how important it was for me to have these family heirloom dishes for our daughter, and how much my mother took pride in them. This was her good stuff. And I was matter of fact about it. And I didn't fall into blaming or whatever. I just told her how I felt, period. Oh, Mrs. realized she had acted insensitively. And this was against her commitment to us. So she apologized to me. She gave me a hug. And more importantly, she reassured me that I was heard and understood. And the dishes are now safely tucked away in this cupboard over here in my office. The one that's full of pictures and papers that I salvaged from my dad's file when he died a few years after Mom. He died in November in front of me. So when approached this way, it's easy to give that kind of person latitude and your time and effort, recognizing that you do it for each other. If I'd made accusations based on intellect, using judgment rather than speaking to her on an emotional plane, she might have become really defensive, and it could have made matters really worse. I didn't tell her she was insensitive. She came up with that by herself. I gave her the opportunity. By speaking directly to my feelings, she could then take the time to realize I needed reassurance, that she was still on my team. We're still in this together. So it's a small example, but it takes a group effort to survive this world. And it says, you and I are part of the same team. How can we operate unless we reflect how we feel to our partners? We complain that women want us to read their minds, but are we asking them to read ours too? To read our feelings? It's kind of tribal, but this need for reassurance is also how we're made. It's something that never goes away. It's in us. So how much should you give? Well, my rule is I give because I'm a powerful man. I use my power in service of myself and others as a way to find meaning. And it represents freedom. Freedom from what? Well, it represents freedom from the tyranny of our existence. We all know we're going to die one day. Living a life of meaning represents freedom from that. I've concluded also in my 3 decades of helping people and my 6 decades of living that power and love reside mainly in the masculine force within us. All of us have both energies, men and women. We have both masculine and feminine energies in us. Carl Jung used to say that men need to find their anima and women their animus. While power and love, and like I said, they're the same thing, force is something different. It resides in the masculine, it's expressed through the feminine. A man who denies his feminine energy, anima, will not appreciate as much nature, beauty, art, music, poetry, nor feel as much awe in front of a mountain or a sunrise or the stars in the night sky. He'll find it hard to see himself in others because he will fail to see the awe in people. What happens is that he loses touch with his own divinity. That's difficult for a king. Your sense of divinity is the source of your power. It's where your king energy comes from. Most women have loads of feminine, but much less masculine. This means she uses up much of her power in her role as a caregiver. And I have loads of masculine, but much less feminine. So I need her for that. It's why women are generally irresistibly attracted to powerful men. It's her model for love. They need us to shore up their reserves of power and love so that they can redistribute these gifts to those around us. It's a team effort, and this is just how we're made, from what I can tell. After all, why would the Creator or the universe or nature make us as carbon copies of each other? It wouldn't make any sense. It's the interplay of these sometimes competing but mostly complementary forces. And these represent the biggest challenge between us. But it's also what's most exciting. One more thing, something else. This you need to know. Men don't become men until they reverse the flow. Until he realizes that he is the source of power and love. This means he no longer expects it from others, but rather gives it freely. It says, I give because I can. Can you do that? Chris Wallace here, advisor to men, suggesting stay powerful, never give up. And this is the day. Thank you for your time.